God, you is right, Lester. Here is Gene Shepard.
Kamala. Perspicacity, boy. Chicanery, that's what it's about. It's time to turn on the thinger. Time to live. Breathe some life into this sparkling thing.
The following program has certain elements that are not for those who are far more sensitive than they should be in this 20th century. We are putting this on as a disclaimer. It does not necessarily represent the views of the management, the engineering staff, the performers, the AFTER unions, SAG, Equity, or AGMA. In fact, no one around here quite is able to understand just who it does represent. So we would suggest that right down the dial they're doing a nice salute to Julie Andrews. I think you might enjoy that. And Cousin Brucey is going to his second paroxysm. And that's the best one.
Hello, gang.
Oh, by the way, for you do-it-yourselfers, we have a wonderful do-it-yourself item tonight. How to make your own bootleg moonshine whiskey in the sink. They can enjoy that. We've got the recipes here tonight, and anyone can do it. Fun and profit, and a lot of fun. I tell you, I'm a little worried. I'm beginning to see signs and omens everywhere. Every place I go, I see. You know, the other day, I'm just walking along paying attention to nothing but my own psyche. I'm on 6th Avenue there, and I happened to glance up, and I actually saw the sky. You know, you don't see it often here in New York, and when you do see it, it causes somewhat of a turn. And I looked up, and there was a sky up there, and had a cloud in it. Yeah, or, you know, a cloud. You know, like they used to have clouds. You remember clouds? And it had this cloud. I couldn't believe it, you know, and I looked up, and I mean, it was an obscene cloud. And, yes, now, I don't know whether it's my mind or whether clouds are doing this. I don't know. Are you with us, Lee? I mean, okay, fine. I couldn't tell. It's somewhat of a trance. But nevertheless, I looked up, and there was this cloud, see? So I see these omens every place. I don't like that. Like the other day, I went into the chock full of nuts. And I said to this lady there, she came up to me, and, you know, she said, what do you have? And I said, well, I'm considering either the chocolate brownie, the shrimp salad sandwich, or possibly orange juice with a hot dog, or a frankfurter, as it's called in more polite circles. And she said, well, make up your mind, buddy. And I said, well, I'm about to do that. And then suddenly the guy next to me squirted the ketchup. Yeah, he squirted the ketchup out on right on the counter there, right in front of me. It just dribbled over my hand. And there it was. For one brief instant, I looked like I'd been wounded at the Battle of Waterloo. And the people jumped up, you know, there's a fight going on in the chock. And it wasn't. It was just a little ricochet from the ketchup bottle. Of course, they had one of these ketchup bottles that's shaped like a plastic tomato. You know that kind? Yeah, uggish. But the guy brought it in himself. It didn't come with the restaurant. He had it in his briefcase. Yes, he was from BBD&O. You know, the client. You always got to use the client stuff. They make these plastic tomatoes as client. So I just am getting a little worried about these omens like tonight. Now, wait a minute. Now, don't put me off here, buddy. Like tonight, I go to this Chinese restaurant, right? Now, you know, right here in Manhattan, you go to the Chinese restaurants, and all these people are all sitting around there. You know, there's a rumor always when you can see a Chinese eating in a Chinese restaurant, that must be good Chinese food. So this Chinese restaurant, I know, they go out and they hire these out-of-work Chinamen to sit around and eat the chop suey, see? And it brings the suckers in like crazy. So I'm sitting back on one of these professional Chinese. He's knocking down. Actually, he's eating a kosher dill pickle, and I'm enjoying. You like that, huh? So I'm sitting there, and I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff, you know. Whenever I go to an Albanian restaurant, I look in through the window, see if I see any Albanians sitting in there. You can always tell them. They got big teeth, and everybody, you know. So I'm sitting in a Chinese restaurant, and I'm about to come here and do my show, right? Okay, right? I'm going to appear before literally billions of people broadcasting on a 50,000-watt channel over 37 states like a green, purple, smelly fog drifting out all over the Ohio Valley. I'm ready to do it. Now, wait a minute, Jim. So I'm sitting there innocently. The Chinese guy comes over and he says, "You like some dessert?" And I said, "Of course." See, he's worked on that accent for years. The guy is a graduate of the Sorbonne. He grew up in Paris. He does not speak Chinese any better than I do, but he's very good at the accent. He says, "Oh, you like dessert?" And I said, "Ah, indeed, mon." See, I like to try my French out on him. So at that point, he says, "Oh, you like cookie?" I said, "Well, yeah, she's not bad." And see, we have these little fun and games that go on between us. He says, "Oh, yeah, not bad, especially a Friday." I said, "Well, I don't know what Friday's got to do with it. I have her for Wednesday." So at that point, he says, "Oh, I've been cookie." So he brings the cookies. Now, you know, these little cookies, these little tasteless little things, you know, the LePage Glue Company makes them, you know. The DuPont Plastics Corporation makes Chinese. Some of the Chinese fortune cookies are reusable. They just take them in the kitchen now and wash them off and serve them again, you know. So I get this Chinese cookie, and I go for broke when I go to these places. I eat the Chinese fortune cookies, you know, the whole bit. So I open up the first Chinese fortune cookie, and I'm with this girl. See, we're trying to play the scene big, and she keeps saying, "This is such a romantic place." And I never have quite considered a Chinese restaurant being romantic with that Formica table we were sitting there eating at with the neon lights over. They always have neon lights on the top, see, and the linoleum on the wall. You know, it wasn't very romantic. But I played a game, so I said, "Yes, it is, Cynthia." And she said, "Oh, so romantic." And I opened up this crummy little cookie. And I pull out the fortune. I have it right here. This is going into my vast file of trivia that, look out, buddy, everything's attacking you these days. I'm about to do a show. Remember, I got 25 minutes before I do my show. And it says, I can't even look at it even now. It blew the whole evening. I was doing pretty good with that girl. It says, "The glib talker is seldom honest." Now wait a minute. Now that's my profession. When you get that kind of stuff in your damn Chinese fortune cookies, where you know, what is this about? And I call the waiter. I says, "What is this with the cookie? I don't like cookies talking about my job." And he says, "Oh, let's see." And he says, "Glib talker is seldom honest." I says, "Who put that in that cookie?" He says, "No, we don't know. Maybe fate. Chinese fortune cookie deal directly with Aya Buddha." It's a religious concept. So you're going to get omens everywhere you look. Omens. Omens. I sat there for a second, you know, look around. I opened up the next cookie. Oh, these things build, buddy. Now, I'm telling you, I opened up the next cookie, and the next cookie says, "Have something to say before open mouth." Wait a minute, they're talking to a professional performer who's about to speak to 50 million people on this crummy, rotten radio station, and I get this kind of talk. And the last one said, "You can fool most of the people all of the time, but you better have a damn good act." That came right in the Chinese fortune cookie. Just blew my whole confidence for tonight. You know, a performer's got to have confidence, right? He got to go out on that stage. He says, "I am Hamlet. I'm not playing Hamlet. I am Hamlet." And, you know, if somebody hands him a thing just before he goes on, it says, you know, the biggest ham in town is the guy playing Hamlet down at the Court Theater. You know, it's bad, tough. Have you had any omens lately? Now, I don't know what made you decide to get married, Herb. Jim, for example, the other day, standing out in his backyard, and he sees these weeds. You know, I know a friend who as a matter of fact, he's given in to crabgrass. In fact, he says he's gotten so he likes crabgrass now. And he's out there standing. He's growing rare strains of crabgrass, and he's even writing a paper on this. You know, cultivating the crabgrass in the New England and Long Island littoral against all odds. When you know your neighbors don't want you to grow crabgrass, and he has to fight the neighbors. They're signing petitions, but he's working it and he's going after it. I think the crabgrass and the dandelions are very suppressed minorities. That's ridiculous, though, not to think of it. They're majorities, really. But I'm standing out the other day with this friend of mine in the backyard, and he has a weed that's growing out of his yard that is eerie. It's as a matter of fact, looks like an octopus. Is there any such a weed that looks like it's got blood in it, that looks like an octopus, and it's got a mouth and an eye? And it's growing right out of his backyard. It's about 8 feet tall now, and it's starting to breathe. And once in a while, it makes a pass at his wife. Now, I don't know what kind of weeds. I mean, so I say the world is changing. Maybe it's an atomic explosion somewhere that somebody, messed around with the atmosphere. Could it be? And I don't know, you see, about these things. So what I did the other day, I was sitting in the living room with this very same guy who has this backyard weed, and his kid comes in. The kid, is about 11 years old, see. And he's, the typical kind of kid with the big, thick glasses and the kind of crooked teeth. He's got the kind of teeth, they got big chains around the front with winches on the side that they tighten once in a while. And he sits down. I said, "How are you, Paul?" And he looks right at me, and he says to me, "Oh, how are you?" And I says, "Paul, how are you?" I have a great rapport with this type of kid, see. I says, "How are you, Paul?" And he says, "Why did the orange fall out of the tree?" I said, "What? What was that, Paul? You're growing oranges in the backyard now? Come on, your old man is good, but not that good." He says, "No, answer me my question. Why did the orange fall out of the tree?" I said, "What is this? What are you doing here with me, with the oranges? I mean, I don't know anything about oranges. Is this a rhetorical question, Paul? Or are you asking me a serious question for something you're about to do in school or something where I can become official?" He says, No, it's a joke." "Oh, I see, a joke. All right, kid." Let's see. Why did the orange fall out of the tree? Anything else, see, I always have to pretend like I'm thinking. See, that makes a joke really good. You pretend like you're trying to answer it. See, it says, "Why did the orange fall out of the tree?" "Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, it was ripe, and it was time for the orange to fall." Right? So, "Oh, no, stupid." And his father says, "Don't call him stupid." And Paul says, "Well, you always do." And I said, "Well, look, Paul, why did the orange fall out of the tree? This is getting boring." And he said, "Oh, well, because he ran out of juice." I said, "What? That's not even funny, Paul." He said, I realized that I was hearing a kid joke. And then he looked me right in the eye and he says, "Where does a 500-pound gorilla sleep?" Well, I knew the answer to that one. I mean, where does a 500-pound gorilla sleep? So I pretended like I didn't know. I said, "Where does he sleep?" Let's see. He sleeps in Grand Central Station. I mean, I seen some gorillas there sleeping there one night. Boy, I took a wide berth around that newsstand that night. He says, "I'll tell you where he sleeps. Anywhere he wants." I said, "Come on, Paul. These are kid jokes." He said, "Well, I'm a kid." I couldn't argue the logic of that. He was a kid. What has more right to tell kid jokes than a kid? And so I says, "Okay, Paul, tell me your kid jokes." He says, "Okay, one is round and purple and very dangerous and makes a buzzing sound." I said, "What is round and purple and very dangerous and makes a buzzing sound?" Sounds like Herb Saltzman's Gremlin. That car that he got. He said, No, that's close, though. It sure does that." "What is it?" I said, "What is round and dangerous and purple and makes a buzzing sound?" "I don't know, Paul." He says, "The hydrogen grape." I said, "What?" He says, "The hydrogen grape." I realized then at that moment that I was dealing with something great and primal. The kid joke, from the kid joke springs the great tree of culture. What the kid is, so shall the father be. And I realized, of course, that I was looking at a kid that was born to spend all of his life reading TV Guide and watching Johnny Carson, because he had a collection of kid jokes. And I said, "Well, let's hear some more, Paul. Come on, let's hear some more." He says, "All right, what is black, lives in a tree, and is very dangerous?" I says, "What?" He says, "A crow with a machine gun." Oh, Paulie, come on, a crow with a machine gun. "What's green and swims?" I says, "Moby Pickle. I know that one." He says, "Oh, come on." I said, "Yeah, I know it." He says, "Oh, well, okay. How can you tell if there's an elephant in your refrigerator?" I said, "How can you tell if there's an elephant in your refrigerator?" He says, "You can see the footprints in the Jell-O." Oh, God. It was going downhill fast. I realized that I was really just listening to the typical the typical Borscht Circuit comic routine. And he just didn't have the delivery down fast, that's all. Spraying him out. He says, how did Smokey the Bear get his hat? I says, what? He says, how did Smokey the Bear get his hat? I said, how did Smokey the Bear get his hat? That's right on the tip of my tongue. He said, I got you. He ate a Boy Scout. Oh, God. Smokey the Bear. He says, why did the president pass a law that everybody in America had to paint their car pink? I said, wait a minute, I haven't heard that one, Paulie. He said, yeah, that's the latest one. Why did the president pass a law that everybody in America had to paint their car pink? I said, why did the president pass a law that everybody in America had to paint their car pink? He said, you give up? I said, yes, I give up, Paulie. And he says, okay, he wanted a pink carnation. He said, don't you get it, a pink carnation? Pink carnation, the country? I said, oh, Paulie, that's so cheap. He says, all right, how about this one? A Chinese person, a Chinese gentleman, went to the doctor. After the examination, the doctor said to him, I am sorry, Mr. Wong, but you have a cataract. And the Chinese gentleman said, oh, no, Lincoln Continental. I said, Paul, please, don't, no more. He said, why did the moron throw the clock out the window? I says, no, why did he do that, Paulie? He says, he wanted to see time fly. Oh, God, stop it. When is a door not a door? I said, oh, I know that one. We were telling that one in second grade. I know the answer to that one. He said, okay, I'll give it to you. When it is a jar. I said, yes, Paulie, when it is a jar. I know that one. He says, what does a 500-pound canary say? I says, what does he say? He says, cheap. He says, cheap. I mean, but very loud, cheap. Oh, I said, oh, I get it. Oh. So I turned to his father and I said, look, can you get this kid out of the house? I mean, Henny Youngman, he ain't. But then on the other hand, he's got better material than Henny Youngman, but his delivery isn't as good as Henny Youngman. And he doesn't have such a good agent. And I sat there for a minute and I thought, the kid joke is a whole study in itself. I mean, it's a whole study in itself. Did you hear those are authentic kid jokes? Did you hear them all? Did you enjoy them? You didn't. Well, I'll bet they. But kid jokes are not designed to be enjoyed. It's like laughing at a Jackie Cannon joke. Nobody does that. Or a Phyllis Diller joke. You just pay a lot of money and you go there and you say you saw Phyllis Diller. But nobody laughs. I mean, that's a kid joke. And I'll tell you what I'd like to do. I'd like to get tonight on the phone an authentic kid. Is there an authentic kid out there that has a kid joke? An authentic kid. Give us a call. We're live here. And I want to hear an authentic kid telling us his kid joke. And I'll sit right here. Oh, boy, that was exciting. We have a real kid out there. Let's see, wait. I'll get my kid machine here. We'll get the kid machine here. Is a real kid, huh? Well, this is a very unusual thing. There's not many real... Hello, kid? Hello, you a real kid? You are an authentic kid. All right, Lee. Well, most kids are. Join the club. All right, kid. Let's hear your kid joke. Why did the elephant paint his toenails red? It's a classic kid joke. Now, wait, just a minute here. Would you please repeat that for the West Coast?
Why did the elephant paint his toenails red?
All right, kid, I'll fall for it. Why did the elephant paint his toenails red?
Wanted to hide in a cherry tree.
Oh, God. Okay, kid. Hang in there. Now, that was an authentic kid joke. Now, you heard that, see? These things are endemic to the race. I mean, the first thing that the caveman did when he crawled out of the antediluvian mud was to tell another caveman a bad joke. It's been lost to history, that joke, but it has not stopped. Are there any other kids out there with an authentic kid joke? And you can add to the collection here. You know why we're doing this? That we're working on this, on the movie, In God We Trust. And somebody suggested we ought to get some authentic kid jokes. And so this is we put that one down in our group. That was great. Now let's go over that again. Why did the elephant paint his toenails pink? All right. That was very good. Very good. That's a goodie. Now, while we're so, let's hear from some. You notice he admitted he was an imposter kid. Well, no, that's a true. Any kid that gives you an answer like that is filled with thousands of bad kid jokes, just by nature. Right? Puns. Kids go for puns. In fact, they say that the pun is the last refuge of the truly non-humorous. Speaking of kid jokes, though, I remember I knew at one time when I was about 9, I had an encyclopedic collection of moron jokes. Do you remember the moron jokes? What did the moron say? That stuff. I had a fantastic collection. I can't remember a single one. It's like eating Cracker Jack. You keep saying it, but you can't eat them for that long without forgetting all about it. Let's see, the moron. And then there was another one. What about the knock-knock jokes? Did you ever hear any of those? Who was there? That kind of bit. Oh, wow. But that was a classical kid joke that guy called in there. I'm very serious when I say that one day some PhD, striking around for a suitable topic, will get a government grant, like say 25 grand, and a continuing laboratory grant from the Rockefeller and the Ford Foundation to study and compile kid jokes. Now, wait a minute. I'm not kidding when I say that. Now, I have a fascinating book right here. Now, just listen to this now. I have just gotten this book, and I've been reading it. It's really fascinating. It's called a Foxfire book, and it's a collection of, now you wouldn't believe that the people would go out and spend their whole life collecting cockamamie superstitions from what the guys in the mountains believe. Mountaineers, hillbillies, what they believe. All right, you want to hear some of their things? Okay, now, for example, all right, okay, you think I'm kidding you. All right, now, how about weather signs? How to tell the weather. This is what the various types have said. For example, if the number of days old the moon is at the first snow tells how many snows there will be at that winter. Okay, that's a genuine hillbilly wisdom. Here's another one. If it ain't rained in a long time and starts before 7 a.m., it'll quit before 11 a.m. Okay. The first 12 days after Christmas indicate what each month in the next year will be like. And the weather will be fair if you hear a screech owl. Well, maybe that's what our problem is. We haven't heard a good screech owl in Manhattan for a long time, and we haven't had much fair weather, have we? So here's one thing. Also, listen for the crickets hollering. If the crickets holler, the temperature will rise. And also, the crickets show that revenuers are near. I'm just quoting. I'm just telling you what it says. All right, now, if you'd like a home remedy, okay, for a sore throat, well, you take a sock you have worn inside a boot and worked in for almost a week so that it has a real bad odor, and then you tie it around your neck and you won't have no sore throat. Of course, you won't have no friends either. And maybe that's where you're getting your sore throats from in the first place. So that's the kind of stuff now. Now, of course, you've heard that one. Now, I'm gonna tell you some great ones, though. Now, hillbilly snake lore. And listen, if there's any kid out there, a genuine, authentic, accredited kid who has his kid ID with him, so we can check him out, a professional kid. If there's a kid out there that has a kid joke, give us a call while we're still on the air. We've got 15 minutes. We're compiling these great kid jokes. All right, here's snake lore now. Here's some of the stuff. There's probably more superstition about snakes than any single other animal other than possibly the owl. Fantastic amount of superstition about snakes. Okay, here's a mountain man was interviewed about a snake, see? And his name is Man Norton. And they said, "Man, what, did you ever hear of a hoop snake?" He said, "Oh, yeah, I sure did. I'll tell you, they got a sting in the head of end of their tail. Them hoop snakes, they got a sting in the end of the tail. They just roll up like a hoop and they just roll down the hill, and then they unroll and they stick you with that stinger." Have you ever seen one, Norton? Well, I tell you, I once saw one from a distance. I never got close to him, though, because I'm scared of him. I would never get over there with this hoop snake. Okay, you've heard of the hoop snake? All right, how about this one? How about a joint snake? You ever heard of that one? Now, this is not a guy that sells pot. down on 48th Street. This is something else. And here's the description of a joint snake. He says, yep, I see them. I'll tell you, I see them. They look like these here old king snakes, kind of spotted, you know. And when you hit one, it'll break up in pieces, about as long as your finger. Just break all up little pieces. And just like as if you cut it up. He just break all up. And if you leave it there till next morning, it'll all go back together again. It'll be a snake again. Now, that's a funny snake to me. You know, I've seen lots of them around here. You just hit them, they break up, and they grow back together again. Okay, that's a joint snake. That's kind of nice to know about. Now, here's one here. Do you want to hear about the whip snakes? You hear about the whip snakes? He says, well, I'll tell you about the whip snakes. I see them. I see them whip snakes. They grow about 5-6 feet long. They look just like black snake. About half their tail is like a whup. It's just whupped. It's plated, you know, like a whup. It's just plated up like a big old whup, bull whup. And you can see them plates in it. They say they'll whup the dick inside of you. You get close to them. Them thongs will just wrap around your leg 2-3 times, and they'll come over and give you a good one. Ha! Well, hey, there's an old fella that lives down the holler. This here old fat boy that died, you remember him? I believe him. I hear him tell about one time Snake got into fighting. He got into fighting with one of them things. And he says it split his hide all over. That thing just whipped the hell out of him. Boy, I tell you, them whoop snakes are bad news. Okay. That'd be great to do a Marlon Perkins, you know, zoo parade. And if nothing, stuff like whoop snakes. Now, here's another good one here now. You want to hear about the... How about let's see about how about a bull snake? See, and they make a blowing racket. Listen to this one. He was asked about bull snakes. Now this is the big famous snake expert. Lives in Appalachia, and they come up to him. And they said, what about the bull snake? You know anything about him? Old Lawton Brooks, by the way, was also a banjo picker, and made the best whiskey in Arkansas. And if you're grown up and you stay around till the end of the class, I'll give you some unbelievable recipes, gang. If you'd like to cook up some stuff, you can even make it at home in your sink there, you know, where you wash your undies out. You can make this stuff up, and I'll tell you, it'll turn your eyeballs green. Okay, yes, sir. Here's what Lawton says about a bull snake. He says, well, they're 5-6 feet long. They look like a yellow rattlesnake with black spots, about 3 inches in diameter, and they make a blowing racket. They just roll along there, they blow and yell like a bull. They get blowing like a bull when they get mad. I'll tell you, you hear them many times blowing out there in the weeds. Well, you know, there's a lot under the sun you don't know about. Now, if you think you heard something else, listen to this one. Here's one. You ever hear about the coach whip snake? He said they look like a black snake. I don't know if I've ever seen one, but I know they're around here because lots of guys I know done see them. He said on that big mountain down there, down the end there. That's where they got them down there. It might have been over there sang hunting. I forget. Anyway, I seen one. I was coming down the old railroad. I heard something like crap, like you crack a whip, you know, just like I hear like a whip cracking, like a 22 blowing off, just like a rifle, see? And something right below me, just one little piece like there was that there bee gum, you know. And I said, what in the world is that? Somebody shooting at me? Well, I went kind of slow, you know, just walking slow, looking to see what I could see. I thought somebody maybe done shot a 22 off at me. Well, it went just like a whoop crack, and I got pretty close to where I thought it was. Now, see that snake? It was the longest one here about. He was running. He was running. That snake got up and run on his tail. If it weren't a coach whip, I don't know what it was. That thing hit something with his tail. He snapped and crackled like that, and I think there was some kind of fire coming out of his mouth. Well, now that's a description of the coach whip snake. Now there's a dissenting description of the same snake. You want to hear somebody else describe the same snake? He said, well, I'll tell you. He said, a coach whip snake. Glad you asked about that one. That's a bad one, I'll tell you. They're about 5 feet long, about inch, maybe inch and a half around. They look normal except the tail. Now you wouldn't believe that the tail is as pretty as a leather whoop, and that the plate don't unbraid but stays together and is firm and hard, as keen as a needle. Now that snake, I'll tell you what it does. That snake wraps itself around a person, a dog or a cow or whatever. It just happens to be attacking, just wraps it, and it kills it by whooping it and running it to death. Now, I don't know whether they do that to kill it. Now, it's hard for me to imagine that snake eating up a cow, but I don't know. You know, they do that. Whew, boy, that's exciting. Right. You know, have you ever had the feeling that somebody's sending secret messages in your head? I mean, and you can't decipher them. Oh yeah, there's a lot of subliminal stuff going on. Oh sure, you watch those TV commercials, and they're sending it out at you like Rorschach tests. Especially if you have a TV set that's in the color. And you watch these commercials, and you, for example, you suddenly find yourself with an overwhelming, total, uncontrolled appetite for a Big Mac at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you can't stand Big Macs, but you got to have a damn Big Mac. And I've seen friends of mine just rush out of their apartment crazed, just with their mouths hanging open like animals and their eyeballs bugging, and they gotta get a Burger King, you know. Not you, Jim, of course not. You're a man of great taste, but I'm talking about my friends. And, there you are. You know, he's the only guy I know who eats plastic pizza. It's great. He's got a place where they sell it. But all kidding aside, though, I'm reading this Foxfire book here, and I'm thinking about all these rotten kid jokes and compiling all this hillbilly lore. And I'll bet I'm probably the only guy that you know. And I actually did this one night. And you just stick around because you're going to hear a story. Shepard has been there, buddy. One night in this town where I was living in Kentucky, and I was at one point in my life living in Kentucky, and it was hot, H-O-T, hot, buddy. And it was a Saturday night, and I was going to a party in this town. And I get down to the party, and there's a whole bunch of people sitting around. This buddy comes up to me, and he says, hey, he says, listen, he says, why don't you go with me? We're going to get the whiskey. And I says, the whiskey? You mean you don't have it? I got a party, you don't have the whiskey? He says, yeah, you got to go down. He says, it's a little early, but we have to go down at 10 o'clock and get it. And I said, okay. He said, but don't tell nobody where you went. I says, what do you mean? We're going down to the whiskey store, right? Down to the liquor store? He says, no, we're going to get some real stuff. So I said, well, okay. And so at 10 o'clock, we went out and got in his 57 Ford Galaxy, which was painted a careful camouflage color of purple and white. And we drove down this long, endless street through town, out into the weeds and the woods, further and further. We went about 9 miles, and then all of a sudden we came to this gravel road and turned left. And we drove up the gravel road with nothing but darkness, the lights shining into this blackness and potholes and stuff. And we went around a big tree, and he stopped the car, and he turned the lights on. He said, shh, now sit here quiet for a minute. And he says, just be quiet. We could hear the crickets and the birds. I said, what are we here for, Jim? He said, well, shh, just a minute. He said, okay, it's all right. He said, you sit right here. He said, no, you better come with me. I said, why, what's going on? He said, well, you never know. He said, come on with me. So we both got out of the car, and I followed him into the woods. And there was a stump right there in the darkness, amid all this swamp grass. And he looks around, and he says, don't turn the light on, just be quiet. And he reaches into the stump and pulls out a 1-gallon jug. And the stump, we're 19 miles in the woods. He says, give me $5. I said, hey, okay. I give him $5, and he sticks it in the stump. He says, okay, come on, get back in the car. He says, don't say nothing. We get in the car, we turn around, we drive back through the woods, back out on the road. And I said, what was all that about? He says, that's the best smoke in all of Kentucky. I says, the best smoke in all of Kentucky. He says, boy, there's a guy out in the woods there named Jake. He said, never seen him. He said, but all you got to do, he says, you got to drive up to that stump at 10 o'clock. Only 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. You reach in and you pull that jug out and you leave $5. And he says, my God almighty, I'll never forget it. But we drove back out into the town there, and sure enough, I held this stuff up to the light. It's got a gray, smoky, silvery color. He says, that's pure Kentucky smoke. You just can't buy stuff like that. It's mean. He says, it'll grow hair on your psyche. And that night, I tasted my first smoke, and I ain't never turned back.
By recording from New York, you've been listening to Inside Gene Shepard. We invite you to join us Tuesday at 6:30 for our next Shepard program. Now stay tuned for Radio Revisited, which follows momentarily.